Hi, Assassins. I'm Brooke.
And I'm Cami.
Welcome to Bookish Realms.
We're just two girls who can't stop talking about fantasy books.
We're back. Welcome to our deep dive of Assassin's Blade. This episode covers The Assassin in the Underworld, which is the fourth novella from the Assassin's Blade. Like in past episodes, the chapter summaries and character discussion are spoiler-free, but the rest of the pod does include spoilers for all of Throne of Glass. This podcast is for mature audiences only. Cami, take it away, girl.
Let's get into some chapter summaries. As a reminder, this is a non-spoiler section where we summarize the chapters we'll cover in this episode. So, if you haven't read the entire series, but you have read The Assassin and the Underworld, you can listen to this section. Celaena's back in Rifthold and kicks things off by handing Erebin her letter of approval from the Mute Master. She's ready to leave Erebin and the Assassins keep behind, but Erebin's got one last trick up his sleeve, an apology. He says he's sorry for beating her up and sending her off to the Red Desert. Celaena's shocked and unsure how to move forward. Soon after, she reunites with Sam, though she's still very confused by her own feelings for him. Then, Erebin lands her a job, take up Benzo Donoval. Erebin tells her Donoval is pushing the slave trade. Celaena has a close call in the sewers when she's caught stalking Donoval, but Sam saves her. And things heat up between Celaena and Sam when he confesses he loves her, and they finally kiss. Was it in the sewers? Yes, but whatever. They kissed. After they wrap up the contract and kill Donoval, Erebin confesses he tricked her. Donoval was actually fighting against slavery. This is Celaena's final straw. She settles her debts with Erebin, sells her Asterian horse to pay for Sam's freedom, leaves the keep behind, and gets ready for a new chapter with Sam moving in with her.
Welcome to Character Discussion. Here we'll cover who the characters are from this set of chapters, what we know about them, and a golden line from this set of chapters. This section is also spoiler-free. In this episode, we will discuss Celaena, Sam, Arobin, and Lysandra. Of course, we have to start with our girl Celaena. In this novella, Celaena returns to Rifthold and rejoins the keep, only to be swept up in a whirlwind of emotions. She's torn about handing over the gold she got from the Mute Master to Arobin in exchange for her freedom. She spends much of the story conflicted over the right moment to make her move. On top of that, she's wrestling with a touch of jealousy as she notices how close Sam and Lysandra have grown during her absence. But finally, towards the end, she boldly professes her love for Sam, and they even share a kiss. Not only does Celaena secure her own freedom, but she also buys Sam's, allowing them to break free from Arobin and the keep. They start fresh in a new apartment above a warehouse. Talk about leveling up. And after the betrayal from Ansel, she's left questioning everyone's true intentions. Celaena's golden line from this set of chapters: "Don't come looking for me for a good long while," she said, "because I might kill you if I see you before then, Arobin." Next up, we have Sam. While Celaena was in the Red Desert, readers are left wondering what really happened to Sam that night, aside from the fact that he was beaten badly. We learned that Sam was knocked unconscious for a whole day and then spent the next 3 days drifting in and out of consciousness. Yet, he insists that his true punishment was not the beating he endured, but having to watch Arobin beat Celaena. As the novella unfolds, we get a deeper look into Sam's feelings for Celaena. Not only does he rescue her from the sewers, but he also thoughtfully gives her the sheet music from the theater performance they saw, knowing how much she's been trying to recreate it and wanting to help her fully master it. The story wraps up with Sam professing his love for Celaena, and we discover his feelings go way back. How sweet is that? Sam's golden line from the set of chapters. "And from today onward, I want to never be separated from you. Wherever you go, I go, even if that means going to hell itself. Wherever you are, that's where I want to be. Forever." How sweet. Next up, we have Lysandra. Lysandra is Celaena's #1 enemy. They simply cannot stand each other. As a teenage courtesan and the protege of the famous Madame Clarice, Lysandra is described as stunning and constantly turning heads. The rivalry began when they first met at the age of 10, and their clashing has continued ever since. While we don't know much about Lysandra's backstory yet, we do learn that Arobin ends up placing a bid for her using all the gold Celaena had given him to secure her own freedom. Lysandra lives for pissing off Celaena and makes sure she knows that she is more important than Celaena. So for this novella, Lysandra's golden line is, "Sam," Lysandra went on, putting a slender hand on his arm, "has been so helpful, making sure all the preparations are ready for my bidding party." Next up, we have Arobin Hamel. He calls himself the King of the Assassins, though his power really stops at the Assassin's Guild in Rifthold. At about 38, roughly 20 years older than Celaena, he has red hair streaked with silver, a youthful face marked by sharp, elegant features, and piercing gray eyes. While Selena admits he isn't the most handsome man around, his allure is undeniable. We've heard about him before, but this novella really dives deep into Robin's true nature. He runs his guild with ruthless intensity and a cutthroat attitude. Definitely not someone to mess with. Having taken in both Sam and Selena as children, his care is far from nurturing. He is known for beating the crap out of those who cross him. Selena is left confused by their relationship. He claims to love her, yet it's hard to tell whether that love is more romantic or more paternal. Ever the manipulator, a Robin loves to exert control over his people. A perfect example, using all the gold that Selena gave him to secure her freedom to buy Lysandra instead. Clearly a move designed to rile her up. The overall vibe, icky, nasty, and just plain weird. Golden line, you might be free of me, but you shouldn't forget who I am, what I'm capable of.
Let's explore this world. Here we cover the main world-building elements that come up in The Assassin and the Underworld. We'll revisit these places and world-building elements in other episodes. For today, this section is not spoiler-free, so if you haven't finished the entire series, please do not continue, but please come back when you have. For this novella, we're back in Rifthold and we learn so much about the city. Rifthold is the capital city of Otterland. When Selena returns, it's autumn, which means tons of rain. Rifthold is built of pale stone with wide streets that stretch from the white city walls to the docks and the slums near the Avery River. Under the gray sky, the green roofs seem to turn silver, and the glass castle towers above it all with its misty turrets. Rifthold is a mix of old and new. Daily life here blends practicality with tradition. Trash from the Melisande convoy and regular street festivals means that the streets and sewers often overflow with garbage. In fact, the city wardens block parts of the sewers so they fill with rainwater, then release a flood that washes the trash into the Avery River. This flood almost cost Lena her life. And we learn that culture and art are just as important in Rifthold. At the theater, Arobyn's box gives a clear view of the stage even while the prized royal boxes remain empty. Inside, people mingle among glittering jewels, silk dresses, and sparkling wine. Even on rainy nights, big parties like the Harvest Moon event at Leifer Bardingale's house bring together a mixed crowd. Music, fine decor, and lively entertainment reveal how much Rifthold values art and learning. Selena even comments that Arobyn demanded she learn the pianoforte so she'd have skills that weren't just killing. We also learn a bit about Melisande in this novella. Melisande has a troubled past. Unlike many kingdoms, its royal family wasn't killed. They gave up their crowns and swore loyalty to the King of Otterland. Selena says she can't decide what's worse, a quick beheading or yielding to the king. Now, Melisande is trying to rebuild its power by showing off its culture, goods, and wealth. The large convoy rolling into Rifthold is all about this. It's meant to convince the king to support a new road that would connect Melisande with Fenharrow and Otterland, opening up trade. Even in heavy rain, people line the streets to watch the parade of Melisanders. Performers like jugglers and fire eaters, along with well-dressed important folks, are all in the convoy. The brightly painted, covered wagons carry Melisande's finest clockwork, beautiful musical instruments, and charming toys, all made by the kingdom's clever tinkerers. A master tinkerer from Melisande makes Selena and Sam's suits in this novella. And finally, let's talk about Lysandra's bidding party. What exactly is being bid on during this party? The opportunity to take Lysandra's virginity. This custom really stood out to us. In Rifthold, courtesans aren't just entertainers. They play a big role in society and its economy. Lysandra's Madam holds a special event where the chance to take Lysandra's virginity is auctioned off to the highest bidder. At a bidding party, young courtesans, who are trained until they turn 17, are presented as valuable assets. Lysandra herself says, "My bidding is in 6 days. They expect me to break all the records." At first, we thought this piece of world building was inspired by old traditions, but this actually doesn't seem to be an old traditional practice. While brothels and madams have existed in human history for centuries, the concept of bidding on a courtesan's virginity doesn't seem to be part of that. The concept of auctioning off a person's virginity is actually pretty modern, as in internet times modern. Virginities have been auctioned off on eBay and other similar websites, which might have been the inspiration for this bit of lore in the series. Regardless, this practice shows that purity is treated like a tradable asset in Rifthold. In this world, a woman's virginity isn't seen as a private matter, but as a tool for gaining status and control. It reveals a deep sense of misogyny, where a woman's worth is measured by their sexual value, turning something that is typically incredibly personal into a commodity for the powerful and wealthy.
Welcome to our analysis and foreshadowing section, which is not spoiler-free. In this segment, we'll analyze key moments and break down parts of the text that tie into or foreshadow future events in the series. While we usually follow the flow of the chapters we're covering, for our Assassin's Blade coverage, we'll have a separate section at the end dedicated to how this novella connects to the end of the series. If you have not read all of Throne of Glass, please stop here to avoid spoilers. Please and thank you. Okay, now that that's out of the way, The Assassin in the Underworld marks a clear shift in this set of novellas. The first three novellas give readers the setup for the acts of kindness that ultimately help win Aelin the war, and allow for those beautiful full circle moments to happen in Empire of Storms and Kingdom of Ash. The Assassin in the Underworld focuses on the things Selena has grappled with in the first three novellas: her relationship with the Robin, her concept of freedom and her future, and her relationship with Sam. So, let's get into it. Starting with a Robin. Cami, go ahead, girl.
This novella starts with an empowered Selena, freshly back from the Red Desert. She knows Arobyn's probably been alerted she's back in Rifthold, and she's ready to face him because she's got the Mute Master's letter of approval, and she also has trunks full of gold that the Mute Master gave her so she could buy her freedom from Arobyn. But most importantly, she feels ready to take that step and finally leave Arobyn, that disgusting motherfucker, behind. Quote, the letter clutched in her hand was proof that she had done it, proof that Arobyn hadn't broken her that night. And she couldn't wait to see the look on his face when she gave it to him. Not to mention when she told him about the 3 trunks of gold she brought with her, which were on their way up to her room at this moment. With a few words, she'd explained that her debt to him was now repaid, that she was going to walk out of the keep and move into the new apartment she'd purchased, that she was free of him. The language in Selena's inner monologue here is so telling. She wants to prove to herself and to Arobyn that he didn't break her, despite how hard he tried. She literally can't wait to tell him that she's repaying her debt to him with the trunks of gold the Mute Master gave her, and she's ready to be free of him.
That word free is so crucial. The opposite of free is to be held captive or to be imprisoned. And while Selena never explicitly says that's how she feels, we know that her relationship with Arobyn has been really complicated. I mean, she literally calls him her master, which ill. That gives me not good vibes. But it's a word that has a direct connection to enslavement and servitude, which literally fuck Arobyn. If I ever saw him on the street, I would punch him in his face. I would be dead afterwards, but I would punch him in his face.
Me too, 100%. Arobyn is a manipulative motherfucker and does his best to throw Selena off her game. He doesn't let her speak and makes her stand there as he flips through papers. And unfortunately, it works. Quote, Selena blinked once, twice. He didn't look up at her. He just kept reading. The message was clear enough. She was to wait until he was ready. And until then, even if she screamed until her lungs burst, he wouldn't acknowledge her existence. So Selena sat down. First of all, this is so infuriating. I would have a mental breakdown if someone ignored me like this. But this is their first time seeing each other in 3 months. And the first thing he does is to reaffirm the power imbalance that exists between the two of them. Everything is about control with Arobyn, and he exerts his control by ignoring her, leaving Selena with no choice but to wait for him to pay attention.
And unfortunately, she accepts that control, even if she doesn't realize it, because she just sits down. When they do speak, it really feels like Selena doesn't know where to start. Quote, she sucked in a breath through her nose, remembering all that she'd been burning to say to him these past few months, and during the journey back to Rifthold. A few sentences and it would be over. More than 8 years with him. Finished with a string of words and a mountain of gold. First of all, have any of you ever been into an argument with your friend or somebody and you're you go back later and you're like, fuck, I should have said that. That would have ate them up. That's kind of what vibe I'm getting here. But Selena has months of pent up feelings. And honestly, if we're being real, years. This is years in the making for her. And it weighs on Selena that the impending split from Arobyn feels like it's being reduced to a few words and a mountain of gold. It's impersonal and transactional, which is not how you'd usually end an 8-year relationship, even though their relationship has been solely transactional basically for the past 8 years.
But it really does feel like Arobyn knows this is how Selena's feeling. Just as she's about to speak, Arobyn does the unthinkable. He apologizes. Selena is silenced by his words. Arobyn tells her that if he could take back that night, he would. And he reveals that he's been praying daily at the temple of Kiva, who is the god of atonement, for forgiveness since he sent her away. This earned him like the biggest eye roll. I don't believe any of this BS like for a second. I really just think that he knew how to get her back in his grip.
And like with you saying that, like this apology really throws Selena off because she knows that Robin is not a man who apologizes or feels regret, which makes her doubtful that he's being truthful, which like you and I can agree with this. Like neither one of us think he's fucking being truthful. But Arobin is laying it on thick. He sinks to his knees and offers her a present. It's a beautiful brooch, perfect for all of her clothes. Quote, he'd bought it because he also knew her wardrobe, her tastes, everything about her. Of all the people in the world, only Arobin knew the absolute truth. Listen, we all hate Arobin. Like, it's actually a big fuck him. And it's mildly frustrating to see Selena considering giving him another chance, but this line kind of like explains why. He knows her. Out of all people in this world, he's known her for the longest, and it's hard to like let go of someone who knows you this well, even if they're abusive. It's like losing part of your identity in a sense.
And I really think it like speaks to that whole sentiment of like to be human is to be known. And I do think part of this is that Arobin knows the deepest truth that Selena is trying to hide away. In Queen of Shadows, we learn that Arobin has always known that she's Aelin Ashford Galathinius. We can tell that like it seems much harder for her. There's a lot more emotions on her end than on his end in terms of this like goodbye. In this inner monologue, Selena reveals what we as readers have seen through this entire series. The relationship between her and Arobin has always been skewed. Something has always been off. And I think this quote like perfectly describes this. Quote, father, brother, lover. He'd never really declared himself any of them. This quote has always like stuck with me because it's just another way that I think Arobin controls the narrative. He doesn't declare himself her father or her brother or her lover because that vagueness in their relationship is what allows him to bounce back and forth between all three of those roles. His lack of defining what his role specifically is in Selena's life is what allows him this like freedom to act and do whatever he wants because there's no expectations of what he's actually supposed to be. If he declared himself her father, then he'd have to act like a father. If he declared himself her brother, then he'd have to act only like a brother. And same thing with lover, which would be gross, but I'm not going to get into that.
Please don't, actually. And Selena continues with this inner monologue. Quote, he loved her like family, yet he put her in the most dangerous positions. He nurtured and educated her, yet he obliterated her innocence the first time he'd made her end a life. He'd given her everything, but he also taken everything away. She could no sooner sort out her feelings towards the king and the assassins than she could count the stars in the sky. Again, Arobin and Selena's relationship is full of contrast. He loves her like family, but willingly puts her in danger. And he's seen her grow up since she was 8, but he's also the one who destroys her innocence by making her an assassin and making her kill people. And she's torn between like this gratitude and resentment towards him because he saved her, yes, but then he forced her into like the most brutal life possible from such a young age. This is what we kind of said earlier, but Arobin has given Selena everything she knows, and because of that, he's also able to take that all away.
And that's why she needs to get away from him. She's realized he controls every aspect of her life and her future. And part of Selena leaving him is actually acknowledging these feelings. She knows she can't really sort out how she feels about him because all of her emotions are so tangled up. This lets us see just why it's so hard for Selena to leave, despite us seeing through her POV that she's spent months like daydreaming about leaving and paying off her debts to Arobin. Her relationship with him is so twisted that it's hard to like really untangle it all and actually leave. And Arobin knows this and uses it to his advantage. He doesn't just apologize. He goes a little bit further. He offers Selena a job that will pay big and that aligns with Selena's inner moral compass. She can kill off Benzo Donoval, who is interested in establishing a slave trade business in Rifthold. Arobin knows that Selena will be interested in this job since the rift in their relationship started when she ruined Arobin's slave trade deal with Rolf.
Selena goes back and forth on whether this is a peace offering from Arobin or just another way to control her. Quote, she was beginning to see where this was going. Donoval was practically wrapped up in a ribbon for her. Selena knows that if it sounds too good to be true, like it most likely is, and she ultimately finds out that it was too good to be true. Donovan was actually working against the slave trade, which Arobin knew from the start. But she also wants to believe that Arobin is offering her this job as a way to mend what's broken between them. And that's why she doesn't just shut down immediately. Like deep down, it's really hard to let go of Arobin.
She wants to believe in him, which is why this initial conversation between them goes so off track. She went in there with a plan to tell him that she's leaving and paying off her debt to him, but his apology and this job offer play into her wanting to see him as someone better. And I do get that. Selena thinks back to the Mute Master and how he told her that people deal with their pain in different ways. And then she starts rationalizing Arobin's actions by thinking that maybe beating her was how Arobin dealt with Selena's betrayal. Quote, and even though there was no excuse in this world for what he had done, Arobin was all she had. The history that lay between them, dark and twisted and full of secrets, was forged by more than just gold. And if she left him, if she paid off her debts right now and never saw him again. And then it trails off. Selena acknowledges that her connection with Arobin is built on more than just money. They have history, even if that history is shaped by years of secrets and manipulation, and it's hard to let go of that. Even though she could walk away, something holds her back, which shows us that Arobin still has that deep emotional grip on her. He is literally the closest thing that she has to family.
And so she tells Arobin she'll think about it. And what does this manipulative motherfucker do? He keeps sending her presents. This is like a little side note, but if you are in a relationship and they are being not kind to you and they just keep sending you presents, just know that they know that they're not being kind to you. So leave them. Leave that fucker. Okay? Leave them. Leave them. Anyways, quote, none of these presents came close to earning any sort of forgiveness, but she couldn't contain her squeal when she opened the box and found 2 gold hair combs glinting at her. They were exquisite, formed like sharp fish fins, each point accentuated with a sliver of sapphire. Arobin is trying to buy her forgiveness, but Selena acknowledges none of these presents mean shit at all. However, they are nice. Like everyone likes presents, But we can't confirm this, but in Queen of Shadows, when Aelin and Arobin reunite, she wears a pair of, quote, bat-wing combs, which could be a nod to these combs Arobin gives her. They might not be the exact one, but it is a nice callback. And we're a little crazy. So anything like this, we're like, yeah, actually, it's the same fucking thing. She's like, fuck you, Arobin.
After her near-death experience in the sewers, which we'll cover later on, something shifts in Selena. She's done. She has Arobin's servants carry her trunks of gold into his study and explains that she's paying off her debt. Selena does say that she'd still like to work with him, but that Arobin doesn't own her anymore. Arobin asks where the money came from, so Selena explains that it was the Mute Master's payment for saving his life. He congratulates her and tells her that she's now a free woman. Selena sees something like hurt flickering in his eyes, but she fights her desire to apologize.
And sadly, this moment just doesn't feel like how Selena thought it would. Quote, she'd expected to crow with glee when she gave him the money, expected to strut around the keep, but seeing the way he looked at her made all that gold feel cheap. A glorious start to her new future. This both pisses me off and makes me really sad for her. It's not hard to see that this is another manipulation tactic by Arobin. He knows Selena and knows that she doesn't want to hurt anybody. She doesn't want to hurt people. So he reacts in a way that will make her feel guilty and empty. And that's not to say Arobin wasn't hurt by this. He definitely was, but he's someone who is in control and loves to be in control. And I genuinely don't think he did see this coming.
And it's so sad that this interaction between them ruins how she feels at the start of her new future. It's sad knowing that this specific moment does end up triggering Sam's death and Selena's eventual imprisonment in Endovier. Hurt or not, real emotions or not, Arobin hates losing his grip on Selena.
Despite Arobin not knowing that Selena was about to pay off her debt, he was already betraying her. We mentioned it earlier, but the Donovan job is all fake, and Donovan was actually working to help the slaves. And Arobin had sent Selena to kill him under the ruse that Donovan wanted to establish a slave trade agreement in Rifthold. Robin is just literally such a dirty fucker, and he is so full of himself during this whole reveal. It hits Selena like a ton of bricks that Robin manipulated her once again.
Arobin says, quote, "You might be free of me, but you shouldn't forget who I am, what I'm capable of." And Selena replies, "As long as I live, I'll never forget that." I literally want to strangle him. But basically, he just wants her to know that he's always in control. Selena might be free, but Arobin will always be dangerous. He'll always be looming over her and over Sam. And Selena tells him that she'll never forget that. And I mean, she never fucking does. While Aelin isn't the one to kill Arobin, she helps concoct the plan that allows Lysandra to slit that fucker's throat.
Period. When she did that, I was like, I love this. I love this. You deserve it, girl, as you should.
Yeah.
And this is Selena's like absolute last straw. Robin is using her as a pawn to grow the slave trade in Rifthold. It's super fucked, but it also allows Selena to see the real truth. With Robin, it's always power games, deceit, and pain. So she tells him she sold her Syrian horse and she's using the money to pay off Sam's debt to Robin. But Robin tries to get one final jab. He tells her he used the money she paid him for her debt to win Lysandra's bidding. Sick. We covered that briefly in world building, and we'll cover it again a little bit later. But Selena and Lysandra do not like each other at this point in the series. And throughout this novella, Lysandra was a source of jealousy for Selena when it came to Sam. So it's just a huge, like, slap in the face, a huge fuck you to Selena. It's really upsetting.
Boo-hoo for Arobin because it just doesn't sting the way he wanted it to. Quote, "He'd spend her money on a person he knew she hated to belittle her. Months ago, it would have worked. That sort of betrayal would have devastated her. It still hurt, but now, with Donovan and Philip and others dead by her hand, with those documents now in Bardingale's possession, and with Sam steadfastly at her side, Arobin's petty, vicious parting shot had narrowly missed the mark." Selena immediately recognizes that Arobin did this to hurt her and belittle her. Arobin can't see this at this moment, but the Selena standing in front of him is such a different woman than she was a few months ago. She has had a ton of emotional growth in these novellas, and that makes this parting shot by Arobin hurt a lot less.
Her new strength comes from many different places. Sam's support being the main one, which is so cute. And Robin's attempt to ruin her emotionally no longer has that same power over her as it initially would. And for that moment, like, Sam and Selena are free. And I just love it. Like, I think that also the fact that she just like bought Sam's freedom too, like, even with the little amount of freedom that they had together, like, it's just so sweet.
I love it. With that, let's talk about Sam, our sweet Sammy boy. Reading this novella literally like tore us up inside, knowing how short-lived their happiness and hope for the future ends up being. But let's not dwell on how things end. Let's talk about how they start.
Selena exits Robin's study after his fake-ass apology and fake-ass job and runs into Sam. She is immediately so relieved to see that he's alive, but she doesn't know how to verbalize that. Selena doesn't know how to be around Sam anymore.
And she immediately flashes back to Sam screaming, "I'll kill you," at Arobin as he beat her. Quote, "In those horrible minutes, whatever bond had sprung up between her and Sam hadn't broken. He'd switched loyalties. He'd chosen to stand by her, fight for her. If anything, that made him different from Ansel. Sam could have hurt or betrayed her a dozen times over, but he'd never jumped at the opportunity." Now that they're reunited, Selena realizes Sam is still by her side, despite what Arobin put them through. She sees that Sam's loyalty is not to Arobin. Not that we think it ever was, but Selena is able to see that he will stand by her and fight for her. And after her traumatic friendship experience with Ansel, Selena needs that validation. Sam is different. Sam wouldn't hurt or betray her.
But unfortunately, this reunion goes sideways. Lysandra pops in and Selena's jealousy skyrockets. We are excited that our fave shapeshifter has finally made an appearance. I love Lysandra. Lysandra's role in this story is mostly to amplify Selena's jealousy when it comes to Sam and to show us that these two kind of hate each other. We do get one foreshadowing hint to her snow leopard form when she's described as feline. But Back to Selena's jealousy, which is not an emotion she handles well. Quote, Selena was surprised at the swiftness of her desire to rip that hand right off Lysandra's wrist. Just because he sympathized with the courtesans didn't mean he had to be so friendly with them. Like, Selena's own jealousy is surprising her here. She wants to rip Lysandra's hand off of her because she's touching Sam. She's literally like, unhand my man before I take that hand from you, actually.
And earlier on, we learned that Sam's mom was a courtesan and was killed by an angry client. So Selena understands why Sam is friendly with Lysandra and the other courtesans, but that doesn't make her jealousy go away. By the end of this interaction with all of them, Selena's trying to convince herself that she's always hated Lysandra and that it's got nothing to do with her new feelings towards Sam. But we all know the truth.
Despite their reunion ending like this, Selena can't shake her new feelings for Sam. As she chats with the master tinkerer who's making their new like Batman suits, she pulls out the spider silk the merchant in Xandria gave her, and she asks him if he can incorporate it into the suit right over the heart. And we don't find out until later in this novella that Selena doesn't have the tinker add it to her suit. No, she has him add it to Sam's suit right over his heart.
The tinkerer tells her that she'll be invincible with the spider silk protecting her. And Selena replies, quote, as long as it guards the heart. She'd rather protect Sam than herself. It just kills me. But again, Selena's having such a hard time matching her feelings and actions to her words. Verbally, she's not being very nice or open with Sam. But internally, she's having a million feelings.
And in this moment, it shows us just how much she cares for him. In The Assassin of the Desert, we learn how valuable and rare the spider silk is. And she's having it put in Sam's suit, not hers. So it's like, we love that. But also, like, when we were younger and they would be like, so-and-so is mean to you. They like you. This is literally what Selena is giving off right now because she's like being such a bitch to him. But she's like, googly eyes, heart eyes, like in love.
She exits the tinkerer's workroom and runs straight into Sam. And honestly, Sam is not handling his emotions very well either. He is shocked that Selena is able to forgive Arabin for what he did and snaps at her. He tells her that she can crawl back to Arabin and let him buy her presents and pet her hair. And this is understandable. To an outsider, it does look like Selena has forgiven Arabin, even if she hasn't. And Sam shows that he's jealous too. He says, quote, Selena Sardathian and Arabin Hamel, just the two of you, inseparable until the end of the world. The rest of us might as well be invisible. Selena immediately clocks this as jealousy. But this is Sam's true fears and feelings showing through. He's afraid that even after all they went through in Skulls Bay and all that happened with Arabin, Selena will still choose to stay by Arabin's side.
And to Sam, it feels like Selena in a Robin's relationship makes it so no one else matters, which is yet another control tactic by a Robin. Sam feels invincible to Selena despite everything that they've been through, which is a terrible emotion. And then Sam drops a bombshell on Selena. What was Sam's price for forgiving a Robin? Quote, my price was his oath that he'd never lay a hand on you again. I told him I'd forgive him in exchange for that. Oh, my sweet, sweet Sam. Selena is immediately filled with shame when he reveals this. She literally says she'd rather have Sam punch her in the gut.
Sam prioritizes Selena's safety over getting anything in return from Arabin. He doesn't care about keeping himself safe, just her. And I just feel like Sam loved her so well. We also have to comment on the phrasing of this, since the nameless is my price prophecy is so central to the series. Everything has a price, and here, Sam's forgiveness had one as well. But Selena literally can't reply to him after he says this. She just walks away.
But Selena is haunted by this exchange. She doesn't know how she'll look in Sam's eyes after this revelation. She is, like we just talked about, feeling guilty and gratitude and shame all in one. And so we fast forward to the theater scene. We'll analyze different aspects of this later on in the episode, but for now, let's focus on Sam and Selena. Selena is so nervous. She feels like she has to say something to him, but she doesn't know what or how to express herself. Quote, She didn't know why her heart thundered the way it did, but she didn't give herself a chance to second guess as she twisted to look at him. She glanced once at his clothes and then said, "You look handsome." I love that she's nervous, and it's just so sweet and normal to see. And I love that she doesn't even realize why she's nervous. Like, girl, you are crushing it on him. Like, you have heart eyes for him.
And she tells him that he looks handsome, which is just like, I love it. And Sam waits until the lights go dark. He leans forward and whispers in her ear, "You look beautiful, though I bet you already know that." Okay, like Sam with the moves. When I was rereading this, I was like, I didn't realize he was like so smooth. Like this scene is so cute. But again, like we were just talking about, like this interaction allows some of those walls to come down between the two of them so they can like talk more.
I'm sorry, but if a man whispered that into my ear, like, we're going home. Like, we're going home.
Take note, our 10 male listeners, take note.
Take note. As the music finishes, Sam notices how much this performance emotionally affected Selena. Later on, he catches her at the pianoforte, trying to recreate the music she'd heard. This combo between them is a little all over the place. They talk about how Sam's punishment was watching a Robin beat Selena to a pulp. Selena asks Sam if he's going to make a bid for Lysandra, which Sam is like, no. Then asks Selena why she wants to know, prompting this whole thing where the two of them are trying to make each other jealous. Selena taunts Sam by insinuating something happened between her and Ilias, the Mute Master's son. And finally, Selena asks Sam to help her with Donovan. He agrees and tells Selena he missed her.
And Selena says that she missed his sorry ass too. Which, again, just be nice to him. Like, later, when they're on the roof scouting out Donovan's place, Sam brings up the comment Selena made about Ilias, revealing his jealousy too. Selena tells him nothing actually happened, just some flirting. And Sam assures her that nothing will ever happen with Lysandra either. And yet, they still don't confess anything to each other here, which, whatever. They wrap up the stakeout and head home.
It's at this point that we get one of the sweetest scenes in this book. Selena comes out of the bath and finds a gift on her bed. The note reads, "Try not to stain them with your tears when you play. It took a lot of bribes to get this." And Selena realizes that it's Sam's handwriting. And what's that gift? Quote, "Sheet music for the performance she'd seen last night, for the notes she couldn't get out of her mind, even a day later." This is the perfect gift for her. It's not expensive or elaborate, but it shows Selena how attentive and observant Sam is, and he knows her and knows that what this would mean to her.
As she flips through the music, she thinks about how Sam had no time to get this music, and he must have run right out after they returned from their stakeout to try to get it for her. This music is even more special because Selena wouldn't have been able to get it for weeks or months since it's not in circulation yet. Even with this beautiful, thoughtful gift, these two are still miscommunicating left and right. At a party later on, Selena brings up Lysandra again, and Sam has just had it. He tells Selena she's a damned fool for not seeing that he wants nothing romantic with Lysandra. And then he drops another tender line. Quote, "I care enough that I stayed at this disgusting party just for you. And I care enough that I'd attend 1,000 more just like it, so that I can spend a few hours with you when you aren't looking at me like I'm not worth the dirt beneath your shoes." Again, Sam's confessions are just everything. All Sam wants is to spend time with her, and she can't see that.
He's willing to endure these disgusting parties just to be near her. And Sam just wants Selena to look at him like he means something, like she sees him. And it really does break my heart because the roles are reversed. Like Sam sees Selena as something and like he just wants that same like reciprocation from her. But again, Sam's honesty disarms Selena. She opens up. She tells him, "Sam, I don't know how to be your friend yet. I don't know if I know how to be anyone's friend." And Selena's also acknowledging that this is all like really new territory for her. It's not just the romantic feelings, but like feelings of friendship. Like she tried to have a friendship with Ansel, and as we know, like that didn't end well. And with the way a Robin set up the Assassin's Keep, Selena hasn't had much practice of being a friend. Like she's struggling with it. She's still learning. And Sam, always so understanding and sweet, tells her that they can just talk about it tomorrow.
The next morning, Sam meets Selena on the training mat. They don't actually talk much about the night before, but they do make plans to break into Donovan's house. But of course, something has to happen to turn the conversation sour. Can these two just like have a moment, please? Like so many times in this novella, I'm like, why? Lysandra pops up looking for Sam. She tells Sam to join her and the other courtesans for tea, which triggers Selena. Despite obviously not wanting him to do so, Selena tells him to go with Lysandra, even after Sam asks to have lunch with Selena instead. Selena walks away, but Sam tells her that he'll meet her at Donoval's.
And so, let's get into the Donoval and sewer scene. At Donoval's, things go south quickly. Selena is captured by Donoval's men, who tell her she's not as slick as she thinks, and they've noticed her following them for days. And then they tell her they're basically going to drown her. We covered this in world building, but Rifthold floods the sewers to clean them out, which gross, and they plan on trapping her in there.
And so Selena is trapped in these sewers. This whole scene is heartbreaking, especially because she feels so alone in what could be her final moments. She definitely doesn't remember that Sam said he'd swing by to help. She's panicking, but she's trying to find a way out. Quote, go, go, go. The word was the only thing that kept her from screaming, because once she started screaming, that was when she'd concede to death. She's trying to stay focused and calm, but it's hard. And it kills us that she thinks here that once she screams, she'll have given up and admitted defeat. For her, screaming equals death. Why does that kill us? Because Selena does scream. Quote, she shoved her fingers through the grate holes and began screaming. She screamed until her lungs burned, screamed for help for anyone to hear.
Reading this hurt so much. Just moments before, she said that screaming meant she conceded to death, that she'd accepted she'll die. The fact that she does scream means she really, really thought she was going to die. She's desperate for anyone to help her.
Thankfully, someone does help. Sam. He kept his word and went by Donoval's to see if she was okay. By the time he finds her in the sewer, he'd been looking for her for 20 minutes. He frantically begins trying to help, but he can't get the sewer grate up. Selena begins repeating his name, trying to get him to see the reality of the situation. And Sam can't handle it. Quote, no, he spat, hearing her tone. No. He began screaming for help then. Selena pressed her face to one of the holes in the grate. Help wasn't going to come. Not fast enough. She'd never given much thought to how she'd die, but drowning somehow felt fitting. It was a river in her native country of Terrasen that had almost claimed her life 9 years ago, and now it seemed that whatever bargain she'd struck with the gods that night was finally over. The water would have her, one way or another, no matter how long it took. Please, Sam begged as he beat and yanked on the grate, then tried to wedge another dagger under the lid. Please don't. She knew he wasn't speaking to her. The water hit her neck. Please, Sam moaned, his fingers now touching hers. I can't. Ugh. Sam is also panicking, especially when he hears Selena's tone of voice. He can tell she's accepted that she'll die.
And here's what kills me. Sam also starts screaming. To me, this is so significant. Sam and Selena were raised very similarly. So Sam must also see that screaming is like conceding to death as well, meaning he sees like the full reality of the situation that Selena's currently in. And we also get a tidbit about Selena's past and how she almost drowned in the Florine River in Terrasen. So dying this way might be fitting to her. Selena comments that whatever bargain she struck with the gods that night was finally over. And this is crazy foreshadowing, because in Empire of Storms, Aelin and Manon enter the Witchmere. One of the memories Aelin is shown is on the night that she thinks of in the sewer. And this feeling that Selena has in this moment of there being a bargain with the gods is spot on. Aelin almost drowned that night, and the gods allowed Elena to form a body to save her so she could be used to forge the lock. And Elena put Aelin on the riverbank, not realizing that the cold would kill her. And so Elena brought Aelin back to life. And then Elena defied the gods because she wanted Aelin to experience life before sacrificing herself to forge the lock. She tugged a Robin awake and made sure that he found Aelin. So when Selena is drowning in this scene and thinking of this moment, she is right. She survived that night due to the bargain with the gods.
And the English major in me has to comment on that line. The water would have her one way or another, no matter how long it took. Woman drowning in literature and art is such a common motif. We see it a lot in Russian folklore and Victorian art. These depictions can include accidental drowning, murder by drowning, and most commonly, suicide by drowning. Drowning is typically meant to represent martyrdom, self-sacrifice, and rebirth. All of those themes resonate not just with this scene, but also the entire flashback in Empire of Storms that Brooke just talked about.
Okay, but back to it. Selena realizes that she has one more breath left in her to say her final words. And what were those final words? Quote, "Take my body back to Terracin, Sam."
Selena still feels such a strong connection to Terracin, and her last words are to be returned home. Home is home, no matter how long ago you left. Terracin is still at the core of who she is, despite not visiting for years and all that she's been through in that time. This is also a common cultural/spiritual belief. There are many traditions that emphasize the importance of resting among your ancestors and returning to the soil that you came from. But the fact that she trusts Sam to do this too, like to bring her body back to her home country, it just like, I can't. I can't with the scene.
But thankfully, Sam manages to save her with the help of a woman who had a crowbar. Selena vomits several times, which as she should, but begins breathing again. Sam is fucking traumatized by this whole thing. They go home and she takes a million baths, which again, as she should, because like, let's remember this is like sewer water, like icky, gross, nasty. Selena says she'll never feel clean again, which again, like, yeah, I can't imagine like even touching sewer water, much less like actually drowning in it. Like that makes you sick. Selena says that she is eternally in Sam's debt for saving her life. And Sam visits her. He actually is one of the only visitors who she would tolerate. Selena thanks him for saving her and apologizes for all the miscommunications and then begins to open up. She tells Sam about what happened with Ansel, and they agree to go back and get revenge on Donovan and his men. Quote, "You didn't try to drown Otterlin." Quote, "You didn't try to drown Otterlin's assassin in a sewer and get away with it. Not in 1,000 lifetimes." So she's refusing to let this attack go unanswered. Like, she's out for blood. She wants revenge.
And she also uses that title, Otterlin's assassin, to refer to herself because she does see herself as a force to be reckoned with. She owns that title, and there are consequences for fucking with her. We also have to comment that despite the fact that she fully does want to leave Erebin and the assassins keep behind, Selena clings to that title of being Otterlin's assassin so hard in this novella and in the other novellas. She references it several times, which I think like really speaks to how ingrained that is in her to see herself as Otterlin's assassin.
We covered Selena paying off her debt to Robin and telling him she's leaving earlier in this section. But let's talk about Sam's reaction because our boy is going through it. Sam is surprised Robin, first of all, took the money without a fight, which should have been our first red flag. And then he tells Selena he might leave. He'll go to Elway, to Bengali, because he has nothing to tie him to Rifthold. And Sam feels like Rifthold will always belong to Selena and a Robin, and he'll always just kind of be like this alternative.
Selena has a really strong reaction to Sam telling her that he's going to leave. Quote, "She was going to splatter someone against a wall. She was going to rip down the sewer with her bare hands." This reaction, to me, is a perfect example of misplaced emotions, which Selena/Aelin definitely struggle with. She thinks she's angry, which she might be to some extent. I'm not saying she's not angry, but it's more likely that she's feeling hurt and abandoned. Her and Sam just started becoming friends, and she's slowly realizing she has a crush on him, and now he's leaving. Throughout the series, we do see Aelin struggle with misplaced emotions. She has a hard time figuring out how she's actually feeling and who to direct those emotions toward. She takes it out on people who sometimes are not at fault, but
yeah. And then Sam asks her if she thinks he has a reason to stay. Selena says he can't go, but struggles to tell him how she's actually feeling. Selena asks him what the point in everything that had happened between them even was. Quote, "The point in Skulls Bay, and the point in getting me that music, and the point in telling a Robin that you'd forgive him if he'd never hurt me again." She's trying so hard here to communicate, but it's really hard for her. And she's really struggles with being vulnerable. And instead, she just lists off the things that have bonded the two of them together and the things that Sam has done to like earn her trust, hoping that like he'll get the hint.
And then Sam explains that he knew he needed to leave after the whole encounter with Arabin, where he beat Selena and made Sam watch, and then also beat Sam. Sam tells Selena he spent the entire summer fighting the urge to kill Arabin. He couldn't kill Arabin until he knew Selena was safe. And then Sam also explains that the entire summer was a game between him and Arabin, where Arabin tried to push Sam to the edge, knowing that Sam would hold off until he saw that Selena was all right. Sam says, quote, "Still, I spent every day this summer hoping you'd come back in one piece. More than that, I hope you'd come back and take revenge for what he'd done to you." And Selena realizes, quote, but she hadn't. She'd come back and let Arabin shower her with gifts. This is part of why there's been so much miscommunication between the two of them.
To Sam, a Robin was done the second he beat Selena and made him watch. Like, that was like where Sam drew the line. And he expected Selena to feel that same way, which she does. But Selena's resolve was beat down by a Robin's apologies and gifts. And it pushed Sam to think that she was forgiving a Robin.
And then we get another beautiful emotional confession from Sam. He is so good at just like laying his heart out for Selena that we have to read this whole scene. Quote, "What more can I say?" he exploded, his whisper rough and harsh. "I've already told you everything. I've already told you that if I stay here, if I have to live with Arabin, I'll snap his damn neck. But why? Why can't you let it go?" He grabbed her shoulders and shook her. "Because I love you." Her mouth fell open. "I love you," he repeated, shaking her again. "I have for years. And he hurt you and made me watch because he's always known how I felt too. But if I asked you to pick, you'd choose Arabin. And I can't take it." The only sounds were their breathing, an uneven beat against the rush of the sewer river. "You're a damned idiot," she breathed. "You're a moron and an ass and a damned idiot." He looked like she had hit him, but she went on and grasped both sides of his face. "Because I'd pick you." And then she kissed him. I literally had like butterflies reading this. Sam's anger isn't just about Arabin. It's fueled by years of loving Selena from the sidelines and having to watch as Arabin made her suffer. Arabin has always known how Sam feels about Selena and used it against him.
And despite all of her hesitations about Robin, Selena doesn't hesitate here. She might call him an idiot, a moron, and an ass, which aren't super romantic, but Selena finally lets herself admit that she'd choose Sam over Robin. And then she kisses him, her first kiss, which is so sweet. And then they kiss a lot more, which, like, period. They're not letting the fact that they're literally in the sewers stop them. Selena has never kissed anyone before, and in the moment is overwhelmed in the best way. She let Sam guide her and, quote, forced herself to remember to breathe as he eased her lips apart with his own. She is learning as she goes, and she's feeling every new sensation. When their tongues touch, she is so full of energy and need that it feels like lightning in her veins. This is the first time that she felt something so intense, something that consumes her completely. This whole scene is a perfect description of your first real makeout session. Like, the feeling is strong, undeniable, and she feels it in her core. And, quote, lower than that. It's not just about emotions.
Her body is like waking up in a way she's never experienced before. This is Selena's first real experience with desire, and SJM does a great job of explaining how this feels. This moment is important not just because it's Selena's first kiss, but because it marks the first time she does experience want and desire, true, overwhelming physical and emotional need for another person. It's raw, it's intense, and it's something that does stick with her forever.
They leave the sewers with their hair all over the place and their mouths swollen from making out. Like, period. Get it, girl. They go back to the keep and they don't talk. They're too busy exploring each other, which, like, pop off. But their clothes stay on. Like, they're keeping it PG. Selena notes that enough had changed with Sam's confession, and losing her virginity might have been too much, like, all for one day. She lays awake and thinks of everything. Quote, he loved her for years. He endured so much for her sake. For the life of her, she couldn't understand why. She'd been nothing but horrible to him and had repaid any kindness on his part with a sneer. And what she felt for him, she hadn't been in love with him for years. Until Skulls Bay, she wouldn't have minded killing him. But now, Selena realizes that Sam has put up with so much for her, like, throughout these years.
And he never expected anything in return. Like, she reflects on how poorly she has treated him and, like, kind of struggles to understand how he could still love her, how he could still care. She acknowledges that things have changed. Like, in the past, she wouldn't have cared if Sam died, but now everything is different. Her feelings for him have shifted in a way that I don't think she ever expected, which is, again, just like so cute.
And then Selena swears an oath. Quote, in the silence of her bedroom, she swore an oath to the moonlight that if Sam were hurt, no force in the world would hold her back from slaughtering everyone responsible. Selena is fiercely protective of Sam, but this is the first time we've seen her admit it to herself. Earlier in this novella, she gave the tinkerer her piece of spider silk to sew into Sam's suit. If Sam is hurt, nothing will stop her from destroying those responsible, showing the depth of her emotions for him. Sam dies without Selena telling him she loved him back, but we don't need those words to know that she does. And Selena ends up fulfilling his promise. When Sam is killed, she goes after who she thinks is responsible for his death. This ultimately gets her captured and sent to Endovir. But also I think if you read this book in timeline order, this is like the first oath that she would have sworn, period. Because this would have been the first book.
And now I'm about to go off on one of my tangents, which usually Brooke is just the one to get these crazy voice memos from me. Once we're introduced to all the characters, we'll have a mini-sode about names and their meanings, but it is very interesting to me that Selena swears this oath to the moonlight. Selena, spelled Celena, means moon. It is a Latinized version of the Greek name Selene, which refers to the Greek goddess of the moon. Aylin is a Turkish name that means of the moon or halo around the moon. In Turkish, it's usually spelled Aylin. So it makes sense that Selena swears this oath to the moon, not the sun or a different god, because both of Selena's names, Selena and Aylin, are both connected to the moon. The moon and its different phases are referenced often throughout the entire series. I've actually started keeping track of every time the passage of time is referenced using different moon phases. Later, in Empire of Storms, Deanna, who is the lady of the hunt and the goddess of the moon, shows special interest in Aylin. Honestly, I might do a whole other minisode exclusively on this moon thing, because there are some really interesting Maasverse tie-ins to this constant mention of the moon. But it just really stood out to me that this, like you said, this first oath that she swears is to the moonlight. But now I'm done. I'm sorry.
So Selena and Sam plot to take down Donovan. Things do not go as planned, but Donovan is dead and the documents are retrieved, which is what they need. Selena finds Sam once her part is done. He's in an alley with his hand over her heart. Selena is immediately concerned that he's hurt. Sam tells her a guard shot at him with an arrow, and it hits him in the heart, and he thought he was a dead man. But, quote, the arrow clattered right out. It didn't even touch my skin. He peeled open the gash in the front of his suit, and a glimmer of iridescent sparkle. Spider silk, he murmured, his eyes wide. Selena smiled grimly and pulled off the mask from her face. No wonder this damn suit was so expensive, Sam said, letting out a breathy laugh. She didn't feel the need to tell him the truth. Sam is saved by the spider silk that Selena had the master tinkerer put in his fucking suit.
Since this is a reread for us, we already knew that she'd had the tinkerer put it in Sam's suit, not hers. But when you're reading this for the first time, this is actually when you realize that she gave it to him instead of keeping it for herself. And that's a decision that she makes before anything even happens between the two of them, which just kills me. Selena doesn't ever tell him that this spider silk came from her. Sam dies not knowing that she gave it to him.
And this whole situation, along with the Robin's betrayal with the Donovan mission, prompts Selena to take one final step. She sells Cassida, her Asterian horse, and she uses the money to pay off Sam's debt. Quote, as of this moment, Sam's debt to you is paid, she said, a shred of victory shining through her growing shame and misery. From right now until forever, he is a free man. This moment is a bright spot in the mess of all of this. Sam is a free man, and he dies a free man. This, along with Selena leaving him, triggers Robin's revenge and the events in the next novella.
Later, Sam finds out Selena's paid off his debts. He asks how he could ever repay her, and Selena says that he doesn't have to. And once again, Sam delivers a super romantic, beautiful line. This man and his confessions are Quote, he brushed his lips against hers. I love you, he breathed against her mouth. And from today onward, I never want to be separated from you. Wherever you go, I go. Even if that means going to hell itself, wherever you are, that's where I want to be forever. Selena put her arms around his neck and kissed him deeply, giving him her silent reply. Again, he is just like so eloquent and open and honest and sweet. Like, these are feelings and words that he's had to keep locked up for years. And now he actually gets to tell her like how much he cares for her. And it's beautiful. I love it.
I am so glad that she got to be loved in this way, even if it was for a short time and ended very traumatically. But Selena doesn't say I love you back. She actually never says it back, but she tries to give him her silent response here by kissing him back. And this is the final scene in the novella.
Oh, I'm dreading the next one. It's okay. I'm not, but I am. I am a little bit. Okay, now that we've covered the two big sections, let's break down some other key moments. Let's talk about music and its effect on Selena, which is something that we have analyzed several times before. Selena/Aelin is deeply affected by music. It entrances her and like brings out very deep emotions in her. We see this sprinkled in different scenes throughout the series.
So, the theater scene. Let's read it in its entirety. Quote, the music annihilated her. The dancing was breathtaking, yes, and the story it told was certainly lovely. A legend of a prince seeking to rescue his bride, and the cunning bird he captured to help him do it. But the music? Had there ever been anything more beautiful, more exquisitely painful? She clenched the arm of the seat, her fingers digging into the velvet as the music hurtled toward its finale, sweeping her away in a flood. With each beat of the drum, each trill of the flute, and the blare of the horn, she felt all of it along her skin, along her bones. The music broke her apart and put her back together, only to rend her asunder again and again. And then the climax, the compilation of all the sounds she had loved best, amplified until they echoed into eternity. As the final note swelled, a gasp broke from her, setting the tears in her eyes spilling down her face. She didn't care who saw. Then, silence. The silence was the worst thing she'd ever heard. The silence brought back everything around her. Applause erupted, and she was on her feet, crying still as she clapped until her hands ached. The music completely consumed Selena, breaking her down and rebuilding her with every single note. She doesn't just hear the music, she feels it in her skin, her bones, and as if it's a part of her. And the final parts of this performance are so powerful that they make her cry, which is not something that Selena has done often. And when the music finally stops, like reality crashes back into her, and the music seems to take Selena to a different world, a different state of being. And if you're reading this in publication order, Heir of Fire is the next book in this series, and it's a perfect setup for what she experiences as she tries to keep the fires burning at Beltane. She gets lost in the music and experiences a burnout.
Let's zoom in on the line when Selena describes what the performance is about, because it stopped me dead in my tracks. Quote, the story it told was certainly lovely. A legend of a prince seeking to rescue his bride, and the cunning bird he captured to help him do it. Again, I think I go down these spirals, but the first thing I thought of was the beginning of Kingdom of Ash. Aelin is captured by Maeve, and Rowan, who is Prince Rowan, is searching for her to rescue her. And he can turn into a hawk, which I Googled it, and hawks are very intelligent birds. So, is this foreshadowing? We can't 100% say yes, but it is eerily similar if you ignore the capturing the bird situation and just sub in Rowan as the bird. Lorcan helps rescue Aelin, but his animal form is not a bird. Maeve keeps an owl with her, who we learn is a blood-bound Fae healer in their animal form. Owls are connected to healing in Throne of Glass, since Silva's symbol is an owl. But as far as we know, this owl, which is a bird, never plays a crucial role in helping rescue Aelin, and we actually never find out what happens to it after Maeve is killed. Because I am crazy, I looked for folklore that could have inspired this description, but there's not a lot that perfectly clicked. Another thing is that the description of this performance is also similar to a story Emrys tells in Heir of Fire about a clever wolf and a magical firebird. So it could just be that this performance is based on pre-existing lore/history in Aurelia that we as readers never get. But we'll revisit this a little bit in our Maas vs. Connections episode, because there are some things there, but we can't talk about them here.
Okay, back to what this section is really about, music. When they're at the party, Selena again experiences music in such a deep way. Sweat ran along every part of her body, but she tipped her head back, arms upraised, content to bask in the music. One of the courtesans on the swings flew by so low that her fingers brushed. The touch sent sparks shooting through her. This was more than a party. It was a performance, an orgy, a call to worship at the altar of excess. Selena was a willing sacrifice. Again, Selena surrenders entirely to music, letting herself bask in the music. The music makes the whole party feel more intense, solidifying the idea that music transports Selena to a different space. The language is just beautiful, but it's also super interesting. This was more than a party. It was a performance, an orgy, and a call to worship at the altar of excess. Selena was a willing sacrifice. Music feels sacred, but also wild, which is a great description. But the sacrifice line is what gives us pause. In terms of publication order, we are getting closer and closer to finding out that Aelin is seen as a sacrifice by the gods, and she will be asked to give her life to forge the lock, which she actually does do willingly in order to save Aurelia and those that she loves.
Sorry, before we move on, I just have to say, Selena would have loved a club. Selena would love the club. Sorry.
Absolutely. Her and Bryce would have been partying it up.
And finally, let's talk about who shows up at that party, because I know we were both just squealing at this. Quote, 4 young men wearing masks stood atop the steps, surveying the crowd. It took all of 2 heartbeats for her to see that the dark-haired youth was their ringleader, and that the fine clothes and the masks they wore marked them as nobility, probably nobles looking to escape a stuffy function and savor the delights of Rifthold. The masked strangers swaggered down the steps, one of them keeping close to the dark-haired youth. That one had a sword, she noticed, and from his tense shoulders, she could tell he wasn't entirely pleased to be here. Dark-haired youth, nobility, one of them keeping close to the dark-haired youth and looking tense. Hi, Kale and Dorian. I love that. This is actually confirmed to be Kale and Dorian in the bonus chapter of Throne of Glass, which is titled The Captain and the Prince. And in case you haven't read it, we'll link it in the show notes. But it's just such a fun appearance by these two.
And because Dorian will be Dorian, he flirts with Selena at this party. This exchange is interesting. Quote, "What's your name?" he asked above the roar of the music. She leaned close. "My name is Wind," she whispered, "and rain and bone and dust. My name is a snippet of a half-remembered song." He chuckled, a low, delightful sound. She was drunk and silly and so full of glory of being young and alive and in the capital of the world that she could hardly contain herself. "I have no name," she purred. "I am whoever the keepers of my fate tell me to be." He grasped her by her wrist, running a thumb along the sensitive skin underneath. "Then let me call you mine for a dance or two." Oh, I actually have a little bit of shivers over this. Dorian and Aelin are both able to fulfill the nameless as my price prophecy. So it is extra eerie that when he asks her what her name is, she lists off wind, rain, bone, and dust in a half-remembered song, but doesn't say her name. And then she says, "I have no name. I am whoever the keepers of my fate tell me to be."
This is masterful foreshadowing. Aelin is nameless because Brandon is her ancestor, and he was nameless due to being bastard born. Later, that nameless aspect shifts when the prophecy comes into play, which states that a descendant of Brandon must give their life to forge the lock. Because of this, the keepers of Aelin and Dorian's fate are actually the gods who wait in the background for one of them to be ready to sacrifice themselves to forge the lock. It is so, so good, and it is just amazing that this is their first interaction. Their first interaction are the 2 people who can fulfill the nameless prophecy, and Dorian asks her what her name is, and she doesn't give one. That's why SJ was so good. I don't care what anyone says. And because there's no better place to put this, and we're already talking about the nameless prophecy, let's also talk about the alias Selena uses in this novella. Diana, spelled Dianna. Aelin uses many names in this series. She is given or gives herself many names because she is nameless according to the Nameless is My Price prophecy. When the true meaning of the nameless prophecy is revealed in Empire of Storms, that list of names becomes even more meaningful. So why Diana? Selena doesn't specify here if this was a name Arabin gave her or one she chose for herself. But as we mentioned earlier in this section, Deanna, spelled Deanna, is the Lady of the Hunt and the Goddess of the Moon, and she shows special interest in Selena/Aelin and even attempts to possess her in Empire of Storms. The Diana alias could be a nod at that, since Diana was the name of a Roman goddess associated with the moon, hunting, and chastity, and was probably the inspiration for Deanna in the series. Diana means divine, heavenly, goddess, or to shine, which also tracks with Selena's other main names, Selena and Aelin, which both have meanings related to the moon, like we mentioned earlier. All in all, this is just another name to add to Aelin's very long list of names.
Now, how does this novella come back into play later in the series? We mentioned that at the beginning of this section, but this novella marks a clear shift in this book. The first 3 novellas give the reader the setup for the acts of kindness and that ultimately help Aelin win over the war and allow for those beautiful full circle moments to happen in Empire of Storms and Kingdom of Ash. Aelin references moments from this novella throughout the series, especially falling in love with Sam and regaining her freedom from Robin. And ultimately, this novella sets up the moments that lead to Aelin ending up in End of Year, which led her to meeting Dorian and Kale and Nehemia, becoming the King's Champion, and the series of events that kick off the entire epic series. This novella isn't just a piece of Selena's past, it's the foundation of everything that follows. The love and the loss that she experiences with Sam shapes how she lives in the future. Her escape from a Robin lets her experience freedom for a brief time, which becomes something she yearns for throughout the series. And ultimately, every choice she makes here sets her up to the path to becoming Aelin Galathinius, the Queen of Terrasen and our beloved fire-breathing bitch queen. And that, Assassins, is why this novella matters. And next, our favorite moments. These are moments in this set of chapters that we really just love.
One of my favorite moments in this novella happens when Selena is observing Donoval. She reflects, how could a man who looks so bored and useless be responsible for not just the fate of several lives, but of his entire country? How could he sit in this theater and not hang his head in shame for what he was about to do to his fellow countrymen and to whatever slaves would be caught up in it? This quote is exactly one of the reasons I love this series. Selena/Aelin frequently engages with political and moral questions, grappling with what it means to be a good leader, especially because she becomes Queen of Terrasen. Despite The Assassin's Blade being published in 2014, literally over 10 years ago, this moment here, the way that she's thinking about this remains, to me, incredibly relevant. The struggle to place moral, competent individuals in positions of power is a timeless issue, and SJM weaves that reality into Aurelia's narrative. So many of the world's problems, both in Aurelia and in our own, stem from corrupt leadership, unchecked power, and tyrant men. Fantasy has a unique way of exploring these themes, often mirroring our own world, while giving us distance to reflect. This moment in particularly stuck with me because it shows us that leadership isn't just about wielding power. It's about responsibility, integrity, and the lives affected by those in charge. Period.
Man, if only the USA would take notes. Anyways, in this novella, I have one favorite moment. This moment happens right after Selena first lays eyes on Sam, after she comes back from the desert. It wasn't that she was mad at him for being uninjured. She was so relieved she could have vomited, actually. She just never imagined that seeing him today would feel so strange. And after what had happened with Ansel, could she honestly say that she trusted him? This scene is one of my favorites because I feel like it is the turning point where she begins to recognize the depth of her feelings for Sam, and at the same time it's a stark reminder to how deeply a Robin has broken her spirit, leaving her question whether she can trust Sam at all. And the betrayal by Ansel only heightens this internal struggle, reinforcing her belief that she can only rely on herself, which we know is our girl has lots of positive qualities and traits, but this is one that is ultimately to her own demise throughout many points in this series. But lastly, we have our final thoughts.
Reading this novella and really all of The Assassin's Blade is just it's heartbreaking. Honestly, there's no other word for it. There are so many moments where Selena allows herself to hope, even if she never fully acknowledges it as hope. She looks forward to the future, to changing her life, to building something new with Sam. For the first time, she lets herself envision a life beyond being Otterland's assassin, a life that is hers to shape. It's not a life of just what Arabin wants. And knowing how all of it ends makes it even more devastating. Throughout this book and this novella, Selena fights so fiercely against slavery. The only reason she takes this Donovan job is because she thinks he wants to establish a slave trade in Rifthold. She's determined to free people from the grip of slavery, and she ends up in Endovia herself. I just think the cruel irony of it all twists my gut. It just makes her entire story more tragic to me. But honestly, I just really love Sam. I love his confessions of love, his unwavering openness and honesty with Selena. It does make his fate just even harder to accept. I'm literally dreading covering the next novella because this one ends on such a high note for the two of them. Sam never hides his feelings. He never plays games. He just loves her. And in a world that has taught Selena to guard herself against everyone, that kind of love that she gets from him, even if it's just for a little while, is beautiful and heartbreaking. So I love this novella. I love that they come together finally.
This novella, I feel really taps into just the sheer amount of emotions that are going on, because it's really the first time that we get a full look into Robin and Selena's relationship and just how much control he's actually had over her life, which reflects on their dynamic. And reflecting back on it is really heartbreaking because it took Selena/Aelin so long to believe that not everyone's intentions were to hurt or take advantage of her. And with Robin, everything came at a steep price. Every interaction really felt transactional with him, which left her feeling uncertain about how to form and maintain genuine friendships, which is really sad. But on a positive note, I actually absolutely love getting to see Lysandra again for the first time, because on a reread it reminds you how intensely they both initially despised each other, and especially knowing how close Lysandra and Aelin eventually become by the end of the series. It was just such a great treat to be able to go back in time and witness the incredible evolution of their friendship, because in the moment on a reread you're you just don't know, y'all are about to be besties. So it was really fun to see that. All right. So that wraps up our deep dive for The Assassin in the Underworld, the fourth novella in Assassin's Blade. We hope you enjoyed our analysis and theories. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok, where our handle is @BookishRealmsPod.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode, so drop us a comment or send us a message. Also, leave us a rating if you liked what you heard. It really helps us out.
Join us next week when we continue our deep dive with the next novella in Assassin's Blade, The Assassin and the Empire. Until then, keep reading, Assassins.
Bye!